We're up to Daf Nun Tes Amid Aleph. We're on the Mishnah. Today's Daf is so Yisayistic. Today's Daf is mamish one of the most Yisayistic Daf in all of Shas. It's the simanim of kosher animals. So we go through kosher animals, kosher fish, kosher chayas. So the Mishnah says, Simani behema v'chaya nemr min haTorah. The simanim of behemas and chayas, that's in the Torah. That's chewing its cud and split hooves. That's mafurish in the Torah. By the way, there was a sheet of the Shach. The Shach was machmer, that in addition to split hooves and chewing cud, you have to have a Mesorah. Chazon Ish followed the Shach, and that created a big to-do with buffalo and not just giraffes, but buffalo, because giraffes, at least there was a Mesorah, at least there were kosher animals that we don't have. Buffalo and bison, and there was an animal, I don't know if it was... well, turkey birds are different. I'm talking about behemoths. There was another animal from Argentina that they brought to Eretz Yisrael. It wasn't an ibex, but it was a big to do, and Chazon Ish didn't eat it, and Rabbi has all arichas to try to prove even these animals do have a Mesorah, whatever it is. But Bekitzer, forget about that. Min haTorah, it's chewing and cut split hooves. So now simani ha'oif. Now oif, there is no simana by the oif. The Torah never says this is the siman of a kosher bird, this is a non-kosher bird. The Torah just lists 24 non-kosher birds. So the presumption is, if it's not on that list, it's kosher. That's why by birds you have to have a Mesorah, because you have to make sure that this is not a bird that was listed in the Torah. Now, although there is no, it's just a list, Chazal did put together certain simanim, characteristics, because what we do know is those 24 are non-kosher, and what we do non-kosher, and what we also know is that doves and pigeons are kosher, because they're karbanos. So the Chazal sort of looked at it and said, okay, you do need a Mesorah, but let me help you. If you're unclear what the Mesorah is, let me give you certain simanim, and then that'll guide you. Like, let's say you have a bird that you think you have a Mesorah that it's kosher, but it has simanim that are of a non-kosher bird, it's out. Or vice versa. So you're not relying on the simanim because you need a Mesorah, but once you have the Mesorah, these simanim will sort of help solidify that there's no problems with the Mesorah. There was a whole shaila of turkey, because it was an American turkey, European turkey. Okay, fine. But Bekitzer, what are the simanim of a kosher bird and a non-kosher bird? The simani ha'oif le'y nemru. Aval Amr Chazal, Chachamim understood, kol oif hadar is tameh. Any bird that claws is non-kosher. Now, what does that mean, claw? So it's unclear. It could be that it grabs its food with its claws and eats off the claws. According to some, that's pashtus, the explanation. Again, it's unclear from the Rishonim exactly what it means. Either it lifts it up from its claws to its mouth, as opposed to a chicken which pecks. Again, it's different Mesorahs, different shadim. Kol sheyesh by etzba yisera. Now, how do I know if it's a kosher bird? Here's the simanim of a kosher bird. Kol sheyesh etzba yisera. If it has an extra finger. If you look at chickens, they even have they have sort of this little hook in the back, this little extra finger in the back. That's a sign of a kosher bird. Also, it has to have a zefek, a crop, which is part of the stomach. It has to have a zefek, and kurkaba niklaf. Its gizzards, its intestines can peel. The skin of it can peel. If it has those simanim, that is a sign of a kosher bird. If it doesn't, then it's a non-kosher bird. Another sign of a non-kosher bird is Rav Elazar at Tzaddik Omer, Kol oif hacholik is raglav tameh. Let's say you have a bird that has 4 feet. When it sits on a stick, if it goes 2 in front, 2 in the back, that's a sign of a non-kosher bird. That's how parrots, that's how they sit. That's a sign of a non-kosher bird. Okay. Now, grasshoppers, we don't eat grasshoppers, although Teimani have a Mesorah by grasshoppers, because grasshoppers have simanim. You should be able to just look at a grasshopper and figure out whether it's kosher, but we've accepted we only eat grasshoppers that have Mesorah. Teimani believe they have a Mesorah. Rav Shechter had a whole arichos about whether an Ashkenazi could rely on a Teimani if he's eating there for Shabbos and they bring out grasshoppers. Can you rely on it? Okay, fine. But what are the simanim of grasshoppers? Kol sheish la'agbar aglayim. First of all, it has to have 4 walking legs. In addition to the 2 jumping legs, it has to have 4 walking legs. It has to have arba knafayim, 4 wings, kartzulin, and 2 jumping legs, so 6 legs total. Knaf of chayfen es rubai, its wings have to cover the majority of its body. Okay, then it's a kosher. Rav Yossi Omer ushma chagav. Rav Yossi says something interesting. It has to be called a chagav, which is interesting. Meaning it has to be, if it's called something else, then that's a problem. It has to be called a chagav. Now, fish we know. Snafir v'kaskesas. It's got a fins and scales. Kol sheyesh lo snafir v'kaskesas. Rav Yehuda Omer shnei kaskesin v'safir echad. Rav Yehuda says it has to have at least 2 scales. I'm not sure, meaning if the guy says 1 scale covering the entire body, that wouldn't work. I'm not sure what type of mitzvah that is. Elu hen kaskasin. What are the kaskasin? Hakvun boy. Those are the scales that are fixed to the skin of the fish. I understand that, but my point is, it doesn't mean that. It means that originally the fish had at least 2. I'm not sure what that. I'm not sure what 2 scales. I don't think it means. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe according to Review, you could only eat it if you see 2 scales. But I think it means that originally the fish had 2 scales. Okay. Snafir. What are snafir and haperech? Man, those are what you use to glide, which is the fins. Okay. Tan Rabbanon eluhei simani behema. What are the signs of a kosher animal? Kol behema mafreses parsa. Right. That it's milos geirav and mafreses parsa. It chews its cud and it's got split hooves. When I was a kid, I thought it was chews its cut. I thought if it had cuts, it would chew. And I'm like, that's weird. Also, like, what if it's on its leg? Whatever. I had other cheshbonos. I'll tell you after Daf of other things I used to. Anyway, not for now. Kol behema shemailas geira. If an animal chews its cud, biyadua. Now here's the line. Here's what's interesting. The brisa adds another caveat. So you have split hooves chewing its cud, but the brisa adds another caveat. But the way it says it is funny. It says biyadua she'ein la shinayim lamaila utahira. If it chews its cud, that means it has no upper teeth. And it's kosher now. So now it's throwing in a concept that it has to not have upper teeth. Okay, but that's not what it says. It doesn't say kosher animals don't have upper teeth. If it did that, I get that. That's not what it says. It says if it chews its cud, that means it doesn't have upper teeth. The problem is that's not true. Rabbits chew their cud. They have upper teeth. The animals chew their cud. Meaning you're telling me that it's not saying that all animals that are kosher don't have upper teeth. That's not what it says. The Gemara will change it to that. But the Gemara at this point says if it chews its cud, that means it doesn't have upper teeth. That's not true. Says the Gemara. V'klalahu hari gamel. What about a camel? Ma'ilagera. Camels chew their cud. They just don't have split hooves. They chew their cud. They have upper teeth. Ma'ilagera. I'm sorry. I would say hari gamel. De ma'ilagera ve'ein lo shinaim l'mayla. I'm sorry. The Gemara has the first question, which is you're telling me that it's what? That if it chews its cud, it doesn't have upper teeth and it's kosher. Those facts are not true. Camels don't have upper teeth, and they're not kosher. I said it before. So the Gemara says, so you're telling me that what are the facts? You're telling me that if it's kosher, it means it chews its cud, and if it doesn't have upper teeth. The problem is, then it's a sign of being kosher. The problem is, hari gamel, what a camel, demailo geruhu, it chews its cud, ve'ein lo shinaim l'mayla, and it doesn't have upper teeth. So says the Gemara, that's not true. It has upper teeth. Gamel nivi isla, it has canines. It doesn't have a full a row of upper teeth, but it has canines. Says the Gemara, okay, hari ben gamel, what about a young camel? Young camels do not have upper teeth at all, and you're telling me that if it doesn't have upper teeth, it chews the cud, it's kosher. That's not true. Question number 2: you're also telling me that all animals that chew their cud don't have upper teeth. So that's, first of all, we thought about camels. So we said camels, baby camels, taka don't. Okay, fine. But what about rabbits? Says the Gemara, hare shefen v'arneves. The shefen or arneves, whatever they are, I think there's a rabbit. The mailas geirahin, they chew their cud. V'yeshlan shinayim l'mayla, and they have upper teeth. V'tmeim. So don't tell me that every animal that chews their cud doesn't have upper teeth. That's not true. Void shinayim yiksib b'reis. And by the way, also, where does it say teeth in the Torah? You now made like a third simon. It's like chewing its cud, split hooves, and no upper teeth. Where is this? So says the Gemara, no. This is what we meant to say. No. Let me say it outside. We'll say it inside. The ikr is chewing its cud and split hooves. So, what's the upper teeth part? The upper teeth part is as follows. If let's say you have an animal that hurt its legs, so I can't tell if it's split hooves because it has damage to its feet. I can't tell. So here's what you do. So you can't look at its feet. Feet are out of the picture. I can't tell if it's split hooves. Here's what you do. Look at its upper teeth. If it's missing upper teeth, it's kosher. Because there's only one animal, and the Gemara is going to clarify, there's only one animal that's non-kosher that's missing its upper teeth, and that's a young camel. So as long as you're able to recognize a young camel, then all you got to check is upper teeth. Yes, there are animals that chew their cud that have upper teeth, like rabbits, but there is no animal that chews its cud that is kosher that has no upper teeth. There's no animal that chews its cud that's non-kosher that has no upper teeth. No animal. There's no animal that chews its cud that has no upper teeth and is tameh, except for a baby camel. So as long as you could recognize a baby camel, you're good to go. So if you come across an animal in the desert, you know it's not a baby camel because you know what baby camels look like. You just don't know if it's kosher. So you look at the hooves. The hooves have some sort of mutilated stuff. I can't tell if it's split. I don't know what's going on in the hooves. So look at the teeth. If it's missing the teeth and it chews its cud, you're good to go. So the missing the teeth is not the siman. It's just it's not the siba. It's a siman. It's just a way to know. All kosher animals are missing the teeth, missing the front teeth, the upper teeth. Says the Gemara, Hachi Kamar, Kol behema she'ein lo shinaim l'mayla. If an animal is missing its upper teeth, If it chooses cud and it's missing its upper teeth, that it's kosher. You don't have to look at its feet. As long, and the Gemara is going to clarify, as long as you can recognize a baby camel. Because baby camels have this in their tray, the tummy. The only animal you have to know about is the baby camel. The Gemara says, "V'livdu parsel." I don't understand. Why am I looking at the upper teeth? Just chew its cud feet. Why do I need this third siman? So the Gemara says, we're talking about a case where there was something wrong with its feet. Its feet got mutilated, whatever it was. I can't tell if it's split hooves or not. So the rule is, look at its upper teeth. If it's missing the upper teeth, then it's kosher. All kosher animals are missing the upper teeth. There's only one non-kosher animal that's missing its upper teeth, and that's a baby camel. So as long as you could recognize the baby camel, you're good to go. Says the Gemara, Rav Chizda said, if you're traveling in the desert, and you find an animal that's feet are messed up, so I can't tell its feet. I can't tell if it's split hooves or not, because there's something wrong with it, I can't tell. So, boidik papia, check its mouth. If it does not have upper teeth, all missing upper teeth, that's a sign of a kosher animal. Not that it's a sign me'ikar adin, but it's a metzias. There's no kosher animal that has upper teeth. So if it's missing its upper teeth, it's a kosher animal. Now, isn't there one animal that is non-kosher that's missing its upper teeth, and that's a baby camel? And the Gemara says, as long as you recognize a camel. In other words, because the camel is the one thing that can mess you over. Says the Gemara, I thought camels have canines. The Gemara says, as long as you recognize a baby camel. So if you come across an animal that's missing its upper teeth, it's kosher, assuming you could recognize a baby camel. You understand? Says the Gemara. One quick point. So what's the one animal that's an exception to this rule? And that's a baby camel. So says the Gemara, maybe there's another animal out there that's also. You tell me the one animal that's non-kosher, that's missing its top teeth, is a baby camel. You checked every animal in the world. There's no other animal. Says the Gemara, Lav Omer, it's Ika ben Gamel, Ikanami mimachrina de Damila ben Gamel. How do you know there's no other animal that also is non-kosher that's missing its top teeth? And the Gemara says, Loi Solkataitach, we have a Messiah, the Tani de Rav Yishmael, Es Hagamel Kimalageruhu. The pasuk specifically says the camel is non-kosher despite the fact that it chews its cud. Shalit by Lama Yedeya, the ruler of the universe, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows, She'ein lach davar ma'legeir v'tamei elagamol. The only animal that chews its cud, that's missing its top teeth, is a camel. Lefikach parabanu kasavhu. So that's why it's the only one that chews its cud that's non-kosher, is a camel. So as long as you can recognize a camel, you're good to go. Now, says the Gemara, another rule. So we just said that if you're walking in the desert and you see an animal with messed up feet, check the upper teeth. Says, what about the opposite? What if you have an animal that's got something wrong with its mouth? Check its feet. So says the Gemara, Amr, huh?
That's the easier route, no?
What do you mean?
Just feed it chewing cud.
No, let's say you have an animal where its mouth is messed up. I can't tell if it chews its cud. So here's what you do, look at its feet. The only animal that has split hooves that's non-kosher is a chazer. So as long as you could recognize the chazer, then it's good. The Gemara says, if you find an animal that has a mouth that's messed up, so you can't tell if it chews its cud, check its hooves. If it has split hooves, it's kosher. As long as you recognize the pig, because the pig is the one animal that has split hooves that's non-kosher. So as long as I recognize what a pig looks like, I'm good to go. Says the Gemara, how do you know that the pig is the one animal? Maybe there's another animal that also has split hooves that's non-kosher? Nope. The Tan Ber Vishmol, as a chazir kimaf is parsu. The pasuk specifically mentions a chazir has split hooves. Shalit by Lama Yedeya, the ruler of the universe knows. The only animal that has split hooves, that's non-kosher is a chazer. The only animal that chooses cud that's non-kosher is a gamel. So as long as you recognize those two, you only need one of the simanim.
Why would you look at eating the slayer if you have it so clear?
I don't know. The shach is a pella. The shach is taka pella. I don't know why I get. Okay, fine. Let's go back there. Oh, interesting. What if you find an animal that's feet are messed up and mouth is messed up? Is there any other way to tell? Apparently there is. Apparently the muscle tissue on the tuchus area, it runs crisscross. I don't know what that means, but apparently if you look at the muscle, you'll see that it has like a crisscross pattern in the muscle itself of all kosher animals. Huh? No, kosher animals. Not a rhino. No, the muscle tissue, not the skin, the muscle. You'd have to peel back the skin. The muscle tissue has like a crisscross pattern on all kosher animals. The only non-kosher animal that has it is a donkey. So as long as you recognize a donkey, you're good to go. Says the Gemara,
Let me ask this question. We know of generations who knew Masorah, but did not know the Simon.
Yeah, but okay. The shach is a chiddush. The shach is a chiddush. You also need a Masorah on top of it. When the Torah gives clear directions, it's a chiddush. Most poskim chaylik on the shach. It's unclear whether the shach actually held that way, but that's the medayik in the shach. You find an animal that has messed up feet and messed up mouth, so you can't check either simanim. Check its muscle. If the muscle runs like a crisscross pattern, that's a sign of a kosher animal. The only non-kosher animal that has that is a donkey. He says, as long as you recognize a wild donkey, so if you can recognize a wild donkey, you know this is not it, and it has a crisscross muscle pattern, then it's a sign of a kosher animal. Says the Gemara, how do you know it's the only kosher and the only non-kosher animal that has the crisscross pattern is a donkey, maybe another animal also out there? The answer is Gemiri Dileka. We have a tradition that the only animal that's non-kosher that has this crisscross muscle pattern is a wild donkey. What part of the body should you be checking the muscles? What part of the body does that muscle have that pattern? Rabbi, it's in the flank of the tail, by the tochus area. That's the area where if you check the pattern, you'll see the crisscross muscle pattern. Okay, good. Now this has all been the simanim of behemoths. Now the question is, what's the siman of a chaya? Stop. Siman of a chaya is the same thing. It's split hooves and it's choose its cut. A chaya is a behemoth. They're both kosher animals. And I said, no. You have to know what a chaya is as opposed to a hema, because a chaya you can eat the chaylev. A behema you can't eat the chaylev. You're allowed to eat the chaylev of a chaya. The Torah says that you're allowed to eat the chaylev. The only animals you're not allowed to eat the chaylev are the animals that are brought as karbanis. Chayas are not brought as karbanis, you can eat the chaylev. So you can take the fat on top of the kidneys and have a dinner. So you have to know what's a chaya and what's a behema. So don't just tell me split hooves and choose its cut, because they both have split hooves and choose its cut. How do I know? I'll give you an example. Wild goat, behema. Ibex, chaya. They're both mountain animals. They're both similar. So how do I know what's a chaya and what's a behema? So says the Gemara, Simani chaya, Tanar Rabbanan Elohin, Simani chaya. What are the simanim of a chaya? So says the Gemara, chaya b'chal mehema hilu siman. What do you mean? The chaya split hooves, chooses cut. Well, what are we looking for? So says the Gemara, Amar Rav Zera, go to the next page. Lahatir chelba. No. We want to not know that it's kosher. We want to know that it's a chaya to be mata the chaylev, so you can eat the chaylev. So hachi kamer elin simai chaya shechalva mutter. How do I know if it's a chaya as opposed to a behema? So says the Gemara. Here's the rule: kol sheyesh la karnafayim utlafim. As long as it has horns and split hooves, it's a chaya. Now, the Gemara is going to point out split hooves are not just split hooves, because goats also have horns and are split hooves, and they're behemoths. It means the split hooves are pointy. Article has pictures, but deer's hooves are pointy. Goats are not as pointy, and cows are definitely not pointy at all, more rounded. So says the Gemara, Rav Daisi Amar, Rav Daisi says, so the first version is horns and split hooves. It's a chaya. Rav Daisi says, Yesh l'kanayim iyata lachzer al klafayim. As long as you check the horns, you're good to go. Yesh l'tafayim tzarachat lachzer kanayim. Split hooves, you have to check the horns. But if you have horns, you don't have to check the split hooves. Horns are fine. No. But it means that if it has horns and it chews its cud, meaning if it has horns and it has the simani of behema, then it's fine. You don't have to check that it's pointy or not. If it has split hooves, chews its cud, and horns, you're fine. The other opinion says no. You have to make sure that it has horns and that the hooves are pointy. Says the Gemara, "V'klalahu hari eis." What do you tell me? Horns and split hooves is a chaya. What about a goat? Yeshel karnayim utlafayim v'chal v'yaser. A goat has split hooves. It has horns, and it's not a chaya. It's a behema. So it says the Gemara, "Krucha is beinon." I'm sorry. I skipped a little bit. The keresh and the keresh animal, afal b'shein lo keren echad muter. Okay. Says the Gemara.
What's the translation?
Huh?
What's the translation? Keresh?
I don't know. Art Scourge says keresh. Some sort of animal that has one horn. That's a kosher chaya. Unicorn, I guess so. You find that unicorn. So says the Gemara, V'klalahu, wait, you're telling me every time it has a horn and it has split hooves, it's a chaya? What about a goat? In other words, as we're going to see, it's not just horns. The horns have to be specific types of horns. So says the Gemara, Hari Eis, what about a goat? Diesha kanayim utlafayim v'chalvayasar. It has split hooves and it has horns, but it's not a chaya. So says the Gemara, kruchais b'inon. We need the horns to be layered. Apparently, when you open up the horn of a goat, it's just a solid piece. As opposed to a chaya, it's multi-layers. It's like thousands of layers of skin. Okay? So you need it to be layered horns. So says the Gemara, Harishar, what about an ox? De kruchais. Ox horns are layered, and it's a behema. So says the Gemara, charukais, we need it to be grooved. Ox horns are straight. Like deer horns are like layered. They have grooves. So it's not just layered, it has grooves in it. So you need layered and grooved. Says the Gemara, Hare'ez, what about a goat? The charukais v'chal v'yaser. The horns are grooved, that and it's chal v'yaser. So says the Gemara, mifutsalos bina. We need it to be branched. So you need it to branch off, like antlers, branch off. So you need it to be grooved and branched off. So says the Gemara, Hari tzvi, what about the tzvi? De'ein mefutsalos v'chal v'mutter. The tzvi doesn't have a branched horn. Now, by the way, what is a tzvi? A tzvi pashas is a deer. Deer have branched horn. So they have a whole arichos that Rashi says that the tzvi is actually a reference to an ibex. It's normally deer to us, but it means an ibex. An ibex does not have branched horns. They have a picture in Arts, has a giant picture of an ibex. It just has a giant horns. There's no... Taisus doesn't like this because Taisus says tzvi is not an ibex. Taisus believes that tzvi is a gazelle. But again, they don't branch off. So you're telling me that it has to be branched off. It's not true. So it says the Gemara... What is going on? So it says the Gemara... Charuda is be'inon. You're right. It doesn't have to be branched. It has to be rounded. Goat horns apparently flat. It has to be like a round. So it says the Gemara, Hilkach. Therefore, this is the rule. Hecha demavtsali. If the horn is branched out like a deer, laydina v'laydaina. It's a chaya. No question. Hecha deloy miftzala. If it doesn't branch out, then barinan kruchais, charuchais, v'charukais. If it doesn't branch out, then it has to be layered, rounded, and grooved. That's the rule. And it also has to be that the grooves merge together. The grooves are very, very tight together. Okay, that's the rule. Now, this shaila of what do you need for the horns, so we're saying that if it doesn't branch out, it has to be layered, rounded, and grooved. That was actually a big shaila. V'hainu sveika de'iza karkuz. This was the shaila, the suffix of the karkuz goat. Apparently this karkuz goat, the horns are layered and rounded, but not grooved. No, I'm sorry, they're grooved and rounded, but they're not layered. So it was a shaila of whether it's a chaya or not, this karkuz goat. And the Gemara says, Hahi is a karkuz. There was this karkuz goat, the Hava Rish Galusa, that was brought to the Rish Galusa's house. So again, it's grooved and rounded, but it's not layered. So it's a shaila of whether it's a chaya or not. Okar malot sina de tarbamina. They brought a basket of chaylev from this goat after it was shechted. They want to know, could you eat it? Is it a chayr behema? Ravacha aser. Ravacha said it's aser. Shmuel buried the Ravo. Ochamin. Shmuel the Ravo ate it. He felt that it's a chayah. Kari anafshe, and he said about himself, "Mepri mepi ish tizba bitnai." From the fruit of his own work, he fills his stomach. In other words, because I looked into the sugi, I'm able to actually eat this. But shalchu mitam, they felt the following psak. Hilchas hakavasi the Shmuel buried the Ravo. The halacha follows of Shmuel that it's not that it's a chayah. You could eat the chaylev, but his aru Rabbeinu Achai. But have care. You should be makbid like Rabbeinu Achai, which is Rav Achai. You should be machmer like Rav Achai not to eat it. Why? Shemeir einei goylahu, because he lights up the gullus with his eye. He lights up the world with his eyes. In other words, he's a big Rav. So out of covet for him, don't eat the chaylev. Ad kan. The rest of the Gemara is stories. We'll finish up. I don't know what these stories mean. These stories are gadata shas that you need, like the moral to. It's not pashup shat. I can tell you that for sure. The Gemara says, "Keresh af bishel keren echad mutter." We said a keresh has one horn and it's a chaya. Says the Gemara, Rav Yehuda, "Keresh tavia de beiloi." Keresh is the deer of Bei Eloi. Keresh is the type of animal that comes from a place called Bei Eloi. Okay, and Tigris, the tigress, is an Arya de Be'iloi, is the lion of Be'iloi. Apparently it's a very, very big animal. that came from Be'iloi. It was called the tigris. I don't know.
A tiger.
No, it's not an animal that's. I would say it's a mythical creature because we're going to describe how Kadosh Baruch Hu was like the lion of Be'iloi and it roared, shook mountains. So I'm not sure what any of this means. So it says the Gemara, Rav of Kahana, what is the size of this lion, this tigris? Teisha amasa have been una leuna dari Be'iloi. From its head is 9 amas wide, which is 18 feet. Very, very large. The length of the animal is 16 amas. 16 amas is 30 feet long. It's like a train. I don't know what this is. So, the Kitzer, whatever this means. So it says the Gemara, just end off from Maisa. Amalei Kei said Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya, the Caesar said to Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya, Eloi Keichem ka'ari masel, your God is likened like a lion, right? Because it says in the pasuk, Ari Yeshak Milo Yira, that Hashem roars during Elul, right? So the Elul is Hashem roaring, right? So Hashem is compared to a lion. Myra Buse, why is that so chashiv? Parsha Katal Aryeh, I can kill a lion with a spear. Meaning your God is compared to a lion. Lions are not so scary. Amar Lei, so Rabbi Yeshua ben Chanani responded to the Caesar, Lav Kai Arya Matel. It's not a regular lion. Ka Arya de Be'iloi. Hashem is compared to that Arya de Be'iloi, which, by the way, you'll have older Svarim. I think that the son of the Shagazariah, he wrote a sefer called Arya de Be'iloi. Arya de Be'iloi is a sefer. So he says he's the lion of Be'iloi. Amar Lei, so Caesar said to Rabbi Yeshua, Be'in the Michsi Le'niloi. I want to see this lion. Amar Lei, Loi Matzis Chazlei. You're not going to be able to handle it. That was when I was telling the guys, Erev Rosh Hashanah, when I went to the mikveh, before the mikveh was open over here. So I went to the oil. I decided I'll go to the oil like 6 a.m. because I thought they would all be sleeping. I thought I'd chap Chabad, they would be sleeping. It was on me. They were awake at 6 a.m. But as I'm walking in to go to the mikveh, David Shreg, an old friend of mine who's Chabad, comes out and he looks at me. He's like, "Where are you going?" I was like, "I'm going to the mikveh," and he just looks at me. He's like, "You are not prepared to handle what you're about to encounter." And he was right. So he says, Amar Lei, I'll tell you afterwards why I couldn't handle it. So he says, the Caesar says to Rishon ben Chananya, and the Rishon ben Chananya says to the Caesar, you're not able to see the Da'ar D'Be'iloi. You can't handle this. Amar Lei, Ibra Chazin Alei. I will see it. Show it to me. So, Bo Rachme Isakim Meduchte. Rishua davened, and this lion came out of its place. Again, it doesn't mean Hashem, obviously. It means this mythical lion started moving from where it normally is. When it was 400 amis away, 400 parsa away, which is like 300 miles, nim chad kala, it let out one roar. Afil kol mabaret v'shur de Rabbi Nafel. All the pregnant women in Rome miscarried. That's how terrifying this roar was. Adamaker tlasme parsi, when it got 300 parsa away, nim kol achrina roared again. Noter kani v'shinshi de gabra. People's molars fell out. Now it got Afu Nafal Mikur Savara, and the Caesar fell off his throne to the ground. Amar Lei, he said, B'metusa minach bei Rachman aled l'hada duchle. We don't want to no more closer. So he davened. He said, please daven that it shouldn't come closer. Bei Rachman aled v'hajli asrei. Rabbi Shimon Chanani davened, and the lion went back to its place. Just to finish up one more ma'isa like this, whatever these stories mean. Amar Lei Keza Rabbi Shimon Chanani Beina d'Ichsil alekeichon. Rabbi Shimon Chanani said to Keza said to Rabbi Shimon Chanani, I want to see your God. Amar Lei lematzis chasis. You can't see Hashem. Amar Lei Ibra. He says, Chazinale, you have to show him. So, show me Hashem. So he took the Caesar out on a summer day, in the middle of the summer. Amrle Stakelbe. He says, look at the sun. Amrle Lamas. He said, I can't look directly at the sun. Amrle Yeshua said, one of the servants, the mere servants of Hashem is the sun. And you can't look at the sun. You think you're going to be able to look at the master itself. Amrle Matzah Stakelbe. Shchina like all shekain. And that was the end of that Maisa. Okay.